Chapter 7. Tomb of Words. The invention of the hole. Mr. Lipwick speaks out. The wizard in a jar. A discussion of Lord Veterinary's backside. A promise to deliver. Mr. Hobson's Boris. In his ancient office, smelling of oil and ink, Mr. Spools was impressed by this strange young man in the golden suit and winged hat. "You certainly know your papers, Mr. Lipwick," he said as Moist thumbed through the samples. "It's a pleasure to meet a customer who does. Always use the right paper for the job, that's what I say." "The important thing is to make stamps hard to forge," said Moist, leafing through the samples. "On the other hand, it mustn't cost us anything like a penny to produce a penny stamp." "Watermarks are your friend there, Mr. Lipwick," said Mr. Spools. "Not impossible to fake, though," said Moist, and then added, "So I've been told." "Oh, we know all the tricks, Mr. Lipwick. Don't you worry about that," said Mr. Spool. "We're up to scratch. Oh, yes, chemical voids, thermic shadows, timed inks, everything. We do paper and engraving and even printing for some of the leading figures in the city, although, of course, I am not at liberty to tell you who they are." He sat back in his worn leather chair and scribbled in a notebook for a moment. "Well, we could do you 20,000 of the penny stamps, uncoated, stock gummed, and $2 1,000 plus setup," said Mr. Spools. 10 pence less for ungummed. You'll have to find someone to cut them out, of course." "Can't you do that with some kind of machine?" said Moist. "No, wouldn't work. Not with things as small as this. Sorry, Mr. Lipwick." Moist pulled a scrap of brown paper out of his pocket and held it up. "Do you recognize this, Mr. Spools?" "What, is that pin paper?" Mr. Spools beamed. "Ha, that takes me back. Still got my old collection in the attic. I always thought it must be worth a bob or two, if only." "Watch this, Mr. Spools," said Moist, gripping the paper carefully. Stanley was almost painfully precise in placing his pins. A man with a micrometer couldn't have done it better. Gently the paper tore down the line of holes. Moist looked at Mr. Spools and raised his eyebrows. "It's all about holes," he said. "It ain't nothing if it ain't got hole." 3 hours went past. Foremen were sent for. Serious men in overalls turned things on lathe. Other men soldered things together, tried them out, changed this, reamed that, then dismantled a small hand press and built it in a different way. Moist loitered on the periphery of all of this, clearly bored, while the serious men fiddled, measured things, rebuilt things, tinkered, lowered things, raised things, and eventually, watched by Moist and Mr. Spools, tried out the converted press officially. Chonk! It felt to Moist that everyone was holding their breath so hard that the windows were bending inwards. He reached down, eased the sheet of little perforated squares off the board, and lifted it up. He tore off one stamp. The windows boggled back out. People breathed again. There wasn't a cheer. These weren't men to cheer and whoop at a job well done. Instead, they lit their pipes and nodded to one another. Mr. Spools and Moist von Lipwick shook hands over the perforated paper. "The patent is yours, Mr. Spools," said Moist. "You're very kind, Mr. Lipwick, very kind indeed. Oh, here's a little souvenir." An apprentice had bustled up with a sheet of paper. To Moist's astonishment, it was already covered with stamps, ungummed, unperforated, but perfect miniature copies of his drawings for the 1 penny stamp. "Iconodiabolic engraving, Mr. Lipwick," said Spools, seeing his face. "No one can say we're behind the times. Of course, there'll be a few little flaws this time round, but by early next week we'll—" "I want penny and 2 penny ones tomorrow, please, Mr. Spools, please," said Moist firmly. "I don't need perfect, I want quick." "My word, you're quick off the mark, Mr. Lipwick. Always move fast, Mr. Spools. You never know who's catching up." "Ha! Yes, good motto, Mr. Lipwick." "Nice one," said Mr. Spools, grinning with an uncertainty. "And I want 5 pennies and $1 the day after, please." "You'll scorch your boots, Mr. Moist," said Spools. "Got to move, Mr. Spools. Got to fly." Moist hurried back to the post office as fast as decently possible, feeling slightly ashamed. He liked Teemer and Spools. He liked the kind of business where you could actually speak to the man whose name was over the door. It meant it probably wasn't run by crooks. And he liked the big, solid, unflappable workmen, recognizing in them all the things he knew he lacked, like steadfastness, solidarity, and honesty. You couldn't lie to a lathe, and you couldn't fool a hammer. They were good people, and quite unlike him. One way in which they were quite unlike him was that none of them, right now, probably had wads of stolen notepaper stuffed into their jacket. He really shouldn't have done it. He really shouldn't. It was just that Mr. Spools was a kind and enthusiastic man, and the desk had been covered with examples of his wonderful work. And when the perforating press was being made, people had been bustling around and not really paying Moist much attention, and he'd tidied up. He couldn't help himself. He was a crook. What did Whittinary expect? The postmen were arriving back as he walked into the building. Mr. Grote was waiting for him with a worried smile on his face. "How's it going, Postal Inspector?" said Moist cheerfully. "Pretty well, sir, pretty well. There's good news, sir. People have been giving us letters to post, sir. Not many yet, and some of them are a bit jokey, but we got a penny off of them every time. That's 7 pence, sir," he added proudly, proffering the coins. "Oh boy, we eat tonight," said Moist, taking the coins and pocketing the letters. "Sorry, sir." "Oh, nothing, Mr. Grote. Well done. You said there was good news. Is there any other sort, perhaps?" Some people didn't like getting their mail, sir. Things got posted through the wrong doors," said Moist. "Oh, no, sir, but old letters ain't always welcome. But now, when there, as it might be, a will, as in last will and testament, sir," the old man added meaningfully. "As in, it turns out the wrong daughter got Mum's jewellery 20 years ago, as it were." "Oh dear," said Moist. "The watch had to be called in, sir. There was what they call in the papers a rumpus in Weaver Street, sir. There's a lady waiting for you in your office, sir." "Oh, God, not one of the daughters." "No, sir, she's a writing lady from the Times. You can't trust them, sir, although they do a very reasonable crossword," Grote added conspiratorially. "What does she want me for?" "Couldn't say, sir, except 'cause I expect it's 'cause you're a postmaster. Go and, make her some tea or something, will you?" said Moist, patting his jacket. "I'll just go and pull myself together." 2 minutes later, with the stolen paper tucked safely away, Moist strode into his office. Mr. Pump was standing by the door, fiery eyes banked in the stance of a golem, with no current task other than to exist, and a woman was sitting in the chair by Moist's desk. Moist sized her up. Attractive, certainly, but dressing apparently to downplay the fact while artfully enhancing it. Bustles were back in fashion in the city for some inexplicable reason, but her only concession there was a bum roll which achieved a certain perkiness in the rear without the need to wear 27 pounds of dangerously spring-loaded underwear. She was blonde, but wore her hair in a bagnet, another careful touch, while a small and quietly fashionable hat perched on top of her head to no particular purpose. A large shoulder bag was by her chair, a note bag was on her knee, and she wore a wedding ring. "Mr. Lipwick," she said brightly. "I'm Miss Crisblock, from the Times." "Okay, wedding ring, but nevertheless Miss," thought Moist, "handled with care, probably has views. Do not attempt to kiss hand. And, how can I assist the Times?" he said, sitting down and giving her a non-condescending smile. "Do you intend to deliver all the backlog of mail, Mr. Lipwick?" "If at all possible, yes," said Moist. "Why? It's my job. Rain, snow, gloom of night, just like it says over the door." "Have you heard about the fracas in Weaver Street?" "I heard it was a rumpus. I'm afraid it's gotten worse. There was a house on fire when I left. Doesn't that worry you?" Miss Crisblock's pencil was suddenly poised. Moist's face remained expressionless as she thought furiously. "Yes, it does, of course," he said. "People shouldn't set fire to houses, but I also know that Mr. Parker of the Merchants Guild is marrying his boyhood sweetheart on Saturday. Did you know that?" Mrs. Crisblock hadn't, but she scribbled industriously as Moist told her about the greengrocer's letter. "That's very interesting," she said. "I will go and see him immediately. So you are saying that delivering the old mail is a good thing?" "Delivering the mail is the only thing," said Moist, and hesitated again. Just on the edge of hearing was a whispering. "Is there a problem?" said Miss Crisblock. "What? No, what I was Yes, it's the right thing. History is not to be denied, Miss Crislock. And we are a communicating species, Miss Crislock. Moist raised his voice to drown out the whispering. The mail must get through. It must be delivered. You needn't shout, Mr. Lipwick, said the reporter, leaning backwards. Moist tried to get a grip, and the whispering died down but a little. I'm sorry, he said, and cleared his throat. Yes, I intend to deliver all the mail. If people have moved, we'll try to find them. If they had died, we'll try to deliver to their descendants. The post will be delivered. We are tasked to deliver it. Deliver it we will. What else would we do with it? Burn it? Throw it in a river? Open it to decide if it's important? No. The letters were entrusted to our care. Delivery is the only way. The whispering had almost died away now, so he went on. Besides, we need the space. The post office is being reborn. He pulled out a sheet of stamps. With these? She peered at them, puzzled. Little pictures of Lord Veterinary? She said, Stamps, Miss Crislock. One of those stuck on a letter will ensure delivery anywhere within the city. These are early sheets, but tomorrow we will be selling them gummed and perforated for ease of use. I intend to make it easy to use the post. Obviously, we are still finding our feet, but I intend that we soon should be capable of delivering a letter to everyone, anywhere in the world. It was a stupid thing to say, but his tongue had taken over. Aren't you being rather ambitious, Mr. Lipwick? She said. I'm sorry, I don't know any other way to be, said Moist. I was thinking that we do have the clacks now. The clacks, said Moist. I dare say the clacks is wonderful if you wish to know the prawn market figures from Genua, but can you write SWALK on clacks? Can you seal it with a loving kiss? Can you cry tears into a clacks? Can you smell it? Can you enclose a pressed flower? A letter is more than just a message. And the clacks is so expensive in any case that the average man in the street can just about afford it in a time of crisis. Granddad's dead funeral dues, a day's wages to send a message as warm and human as a thrown knife. But a letter is real. He stopped. Miss Crislock was scribbling like mad, and it's always worrying to see a journalist take a sudden interest in what you're saying, especially when you half suspect it was a load of pigeon guano. And it gets worse when they're smiling. People are complaining that the clacks is becoming expensive, slow and unreliable, said Miss Crislock. How do you feel about that? All I can tell you is that today we've taken on a postman who is 18,000 years old, said Moist. He doesn't break down very easily. Yes, the golem. Some people say, What is your first name, Miss Crislock? Said Moist. For a moment the woman coloured. Then she said, It's Saccharissa. Thank you. I'm Moist. Please don't laugh. The golems, you're laughing, aren't you? It's just a cough, honestly, said the reporter, raising her hand to her throat and coughing unconvincingly. Sorry, it sounded a bit like a laugh, Saccharissa. I need postmen, counter clerks, sorters. I need lots of people. The mail will move. I need people to help me move it. Any kind of people. Thanks, Stanley. The boy had come with two mismatched jugs of tea. One had an appalling little kitten on it, except that erratic collisions in the washing-up bowl had scratched it so that its expression was that of a creature in the final stages of rabies. The other had once hilariously informed the world that clinical insanity wasn't necessary for employment, but most of the words had faded, leaving, "You don't have to be mad to work here, but it helps." He put them down with care on Moist's desk. Stanley did everything carefully. "Thank you," Moist repeated. You can go now, Stanley. Help with the sorting, eh?" "There's a vampire in the hall, Mr. Lipwick," said Stanley. That will be Otto," said Saccharissa quickly. "You don't have a thing about vampires, do you?" "Hey, if he's got a pair of hands and knows how to walk, I'll give him a job." "He's already got one," said Saccharissa, laughing. "He's a chief iconographer. He's been taking pictures of your men at work. We'd very much like to have one of you for the front page." "What? No," said Moist. "Please, no. He's very good." "Yeah, but," Moist began, and in his head the sentence went on. "But I don't think that even a talent for looking like half the men you see in the street would survive in a picture." What actually came out was, "I don't want to be singled out from all the hard-working men and golems who are putting the post office back on its feet. After all, there's no me in team, eh?" Actually, there is," said Saccharissa. "Besides, you're the one wearing the winged hat and the golden suit. Come on, Mr. Lipwick. All right, I really didn't want to go into this, but it's against my religion, said Moist, who had time to think. We're forbidden to have any image made of us. It removes part of the soul, you know. And you believe that? Said Saccharissa. Really? Yeah, no, of course not as such, but you can't treat religion as a sort of buffet, can you? I mean, you can't say, yes, please, I'll have some of the celestial paradise and a helping of the divine plan, but do go easy on the kneeling and none of the prohibition of images, they give me wind. It's table d'hôte or something, or nothing. Otherwise, well, it could get rather silly. Miss Crisblock looked at him with her head to one side. You work for his lordship, don't you? She said. Well, of course, this is an official job. And I expect you to tell me that your previous job was as a clerk, nothing special. That's right. Although your name probably is Moist von Lipwick, because I can't believe anyone would choose that as an assumed name, she went on. Thank you very much. It sounds to me as though you're issuing a challenge, Mr. Lipwick. There's all sorts of problems with the clacks right now. There's been a big stink about the people they've been sacking and how the ones that are left are being worked to death, and up you pop full of ideas. I'm serious, Saccharissa. Look, people are already giving us new letters to post. He pulled them out of his pocket and fanned them out. See this? There's one here to go to Dolly's sisters, and another to Naphill, and one for Blind I.O. He's a god, said the woman. Could be a problem. No, said Moist briskly, putting the letters back in his pocket. We'll deliver to the gods themselves. He has 3 temples in the city. It'll be easy. And you've forgotten about the pictures. Hooray. A man of resource, I see. Tell me, Mr. Moist, do you know much about the history of this place? Not too much. I'd certainly like to find out where the chandeliers went to. You haven't spoken to Professor Pelk? Who is he? Said Moist. I'm amazed. He's at the university. He wrote a whole chapter on this place in his book on, something to do with big masses of writing thinking for themselves. I suppose you do know about the people who died. Oh, yes. He said the place drove them mad in some way. Well, actually, we said that. What he said was a lot more complicated. I have to hand it to you, Mr. Lipwick, taking on a job that has killed 4 men before you. It takes a special kind of man to do that. Yes, thought Moist, an ignorant one. You haven't noticed anything strange yourself, Miss Crisblock went on. Well, I think my body travelled in time, but the soles of my feet didn't, but I'm not sure how much of that was a hallucination. I was nearly killed in a mail slide, and the letters keep talking to me, were the words that Moist didn't say, because it's the kind of thing you don't say to an open notebook. What he did say was, oh no, it's a fine old building, and I fully intend to bring it back to its former glory. Good. How old are you, Mr. Moist? 26. Is that important? We like to be thorough. Miss Crisblock gave him a sweet smile. Besides, it's important if we have to write your obituary. Moist marched through the hall with Grote sidling after him. He pulled the new letters out of his pocket and thrust them into Grote's grabby hands. Get these delivered. Anything addressed to a god goes to his or her or its temple. Any other strange one put on my desk. We picked up another 15 just now, sir. People think it's funny. Got the money? Oh, yes, sir. Then we're the ones laughing, said Moist firmly. I won't be long. I'm off to see the wizard. By law and tradition, the great library of Unseen University is open to the public, although they aren't allowed as far as the magical shelves. They don't realize this, however, since the rules of time and space are twisted inside the library, and so hundreds of miles of shelving can easily be concealed inside a space roughly the thickness of paint. People flock in nevertheless in search of answers to those questions only librarians are considered to be able to answer, such as, is this the laundry? How do you spell surreptitious? And, on a regular basis, do you have a book I remember reading once? It had a red cover and it turned out where they were twins. And, strictly speaking, the library will have it. Somewhere. Somewhere it has every book written that ever will be written, and, notably, every book that it is possible to write. These are not on the public shelves, lest untrained handling cause the collapse of everything that is possible to imagine. Like everyone else who entered the library, Moist stared up at the dome. Everyone did. They always wondered why a library that was technically infinite in size was covered by a dome a few hundred feet across, and they were allowed to go on wondering. Just below the dome, staring down from their niches, were statues of the virtues: patience, chastity, silence, charity, hope, tupso, Bistronomy, and fortitude. Many cultures practice neither of these in the hustle and bustle of the modern world because no one can remember what exactly they are. Moist couldn't resist removing his hat and giving a little salute to Hope, to whom he owed so much. Then, as he wondered why the statue of Bistronomy was carrying a kettle and what looked like a bunch of parsnips, he collided with someone who grabbed him by the arm and hurled him across the floor. Don't say a word, but you were looking for a book, yes? Well, actually, he seemed to be in the clutches of a wizard. You are not sure what book, said the wizard. Exactly, it's the job of a librarian to find the right book for the right person. If you would just sit there, we can proceed, thank you. Please excuse the straps, this will not take long, it's practically painless. Practically. Moist was pushed firmly into a large and complex swivel chair. His captor, or helper, or whatever he might turn out to be, gave him a reassuring smile. Other shadowy figures helped him strap Moist into the chair, which, while basically an old horseshoe-shaped one with a leather seat, was surrounded by stuff. Some of it was clearly magical, being of the star and skulls variety. But what about the jar of pickles, the pair of tongues, and the live mouse in a cage made of... Panic gripped Moist, and not at all coincidentally, so did a pair of padded paddles, which closed over his ears. Just before all sound was silenced, he heard, "You may experience a taste of eggs and the sensation of being slapped in the face with some sort of fish. This is perfectly..." And then Thlabber happened. It was a traditional magic term, although Moist did not know this. There was a moment in which everything, even the things that couldn't be stretched, felt stretched. And then there was the moment when everything suddenly went back to not being stretched, known as the moment of Thlabber. When Moist opened his eyes again, the chair was facing the other way. There was no sign of the pickles, the tongs, or the mouse, but in their place was a bucket of clockwork pastry lobsters and a boxed set of novelty glass eyes. Moist gulped and muttered, "Haddock." "Really, most people say cod," said someone. "No accounting for taste, I suppose." Hands unbuckled Moist and held him to his feet. These hands belonged to an orangutan. But Moist didn't pass comment. This was the University of Wizards, after all. The man who had shoved him into the chair was now standing by a desk, staring at some wizardly device. "Any moment now," he said. Any moment now, any second." A bundle of what appeared to be hose pipes led from the desk into the wall. Moist was certain they bulged for a moment like a snake eating in a hurry. The machine stuttered and a piece of paper dropped out of a slot. "Ah, here we are," said the wizard, snatching it up. "Yes, the book you were after was A History of Hats by F.G. Smallfinger, am I right?" "No, I'm not after a book. In fact," Moist began. "Are you sure? We've lots." There were two striking things about this wizard. One was, well, Grandfather Lipwick has always said that you could tell the honesty of a man by the size of his ears. And this was clearly a very honest wizard. The other was that the beard he was wearing was very clearly false. "I was looking for a wizard called Pelk," he ventured. The beard parted slightly to reveal a wide smile. "I knew the machine would work," said the wizard. "You are looking, in fact, for me." The sign on the outside of the office said, "Ladislaw Pelk, D.M. Phil, Pre-Humorous Professor of Morbid Bibliomancy." On the inside of the door was a hook on which the wizard hung his beard. It was a wizard's study, so of course it had the skull with the candle on it and a stuffed crocodile hanging from the ceiling. No one, least of all wizards, know why this is, but you do have to have them. It was also a room full of books and made of books. There was no actual furniture. This is to say, the desk and chairs were shaped out of books. It looks as though many of them were frequently referred to because they lay open with other books used as bookmarks. "You want to know about your post office, I expect," said Pelk, as Moist settled into a chair carefully put together from volumes 1 to 41 of synonyms for the word plimsoll. "Yes, please," said Moist. "Voices, strange events?" "Yes." How can I put this? Mused Pilk. Words have power, you understand. It is in the nature of our universe. Our library itself distorts time and space on quite a grand scale. Well, when the post office started accumulating letters, it was storing words. In fact, what was being created was what we call a Qa'Rajh, a tomb of living words. Are you of literary persuasion, Mr. Lipwick? Not as such. Books were a closed book to Moist. Would you burn a book? Said Pelk. An old book, say battered, almost spineless, found in a book of rubbish. Well, probably not, Moist admitted. Why not? Would the thought make you uncomfortable? I suppose it would. Books are, well, you just don't do that. Why do you wear a false beard? I thought wizards had real ones. Yeah, it's not compulsory, you know, but when we go outside, the public expects beards, said Pelk. It's like having stars on your robes. Besides, they're far too hot in the summer. Where was I? Qa'Rajh, yes, all words have some power. We feel it instinctively. Like magical spells, and the true names of the gods have a great deal. They must be treated with respect. In Qa'Rajh, there is a mountain with many caves, and in one of those caves are entombed more than 100,000 old books, mostly religious, each one in a white linen shroud. That is perhaps an extreme approach, but intelligent people have always known that some words, at least, should be disposed of with care and with respect. Not just shoved in sacks in the attic, said Moist. Hold on. A golem called the post office a tomb of unheard words. I'm not at all surprised, said Professor Pelk calmly. The old Qa'Rajhs and libraries used to employ golems, because the only words that have the power to influence them are the ones in their own heads. Words are important, and when there is a critical mass of them, they change the nature of the universe. Did you have what seemed to be hallucinations? Yes, I was back in time, but also in the present. Ah, yes, that is quite common, said the wizard. Enough words crammed together can affect time and space. And they spoke to me? I told the watch the letters wanted to be delivered, said Professor Pelk. Until a letter is read, it is not complete. They will try anything to be delivered, but they don't think, as you understand it, and they are not clever. They just reach out to any available mind. I see you've already been turned into an avatar. I can't fly. Avatar, the living likeness of a god, said the professor patiently. The hat with wings, the golden suit? No, they happened by accident. Are you sure? The room went quiet. I was until now, said Moist. They are not trying to hurt anyone, Mr. Librick, said Pelk. They just want deliverance. Well, we'll never be able to deliver them all, said Moist. That'd take years. The mere fact that you are delivering any will help, I'm sure, said Professor Pelk, smiling like a doctor telling a man not to worry. The disease is only fatal in 87% of the cases. Is there anything else I can help you with? He stood up to indicate that a wizard's time is valuable. Well, I'd quite like to know where the chandeliers went, said Moist. It'll be nice to get them back. Symbolic, you could say. I can't help you, but I'm sure Professor Qa'Rajh can. He is the posthumous professor of morbid bibliomancy. We could drop in and see him on the way out, if you like. He's in the wizard's pantry. Why is he posthumous? Moist asked as they stepped out into the corridor. He's dead, said Pelk. Ah, I was kind of hoping that it was going to be a little more metaphorical than that, said Moist. Don't worry, he decided to take early death. It was a very good package. Oh, said Moist. The important thing at a time like this was to spot the right moment to run, but they'd got here through a maze of dark passages, and this was not a place you want to get lost in. Something might find you. They stopped outside a door through which came the muffled sound of voices and the occasional clink of glassware. This stopped as soon as the professor pushed open a door, and it was hard to see where it could have come from. This was indeed a pantry, quite empty of people, its walls lined with shelves, the shelves lined with little jaws. There was a wizard in each one. Now would be the right time to run, Moist's hind-brain thought, as Pelk reached for a jar, unscrewed the lid, and rummaged around in it for the tiny wizard. "Oh, this isn't him," said the professor cheerfully, seeing Moist's expression. "The housekeeper puts these little knitted wizard dolls in just to remind the kitchen staff that the jar shouldn't be used for anything else. There was an incident with some peanut butter, I believe. I just have to take it out so that he doesn't sound muffled. So, where is the Professor, in fact? Oh, in the jar for a certain value of in, said Professor Pilk. It's very hard to explain to a layman. He's only dead for a given value of dead, said Moist. Exactly. And he can come back at a week's notice. A lot of the older wizards are opting for it now. Very refreshing, they say. Just like a sabbatical, only longer. Where do they go? No one's quite sure about that exactly, but you can hear the sounds of cutlery, said Pelk, and raised the jar to his mouth. Excuse me, Professor Qa'Rajh, can you by any chance recall what happened to the chandeliers in the post office? Moist was expecting a tinny little voice to reply, but a sprightly, if elderly voice, a few inches away from his ear, said, What? Oh, yes, indeed. One ended up in the Opera House, and the other was acquired by the Assassin's Guild. Here comes the pudding trolley. Goodbye. Thank you, Professor, said Pelk solemnly. All is well here. Fat lot I care, said the disembodied voice. Be off, please. We're eating. There you have it then, said Pelk, putting the wizard doll back in the jar, screwing the lid back on. The Opera House and the Assassin's Guild. It might be quite hard to get them back, I'd fancy. Yes, I think I shall put that off for a day or two, said Moist, stepping out of the door. Dangerous people to tangle with. Indeed, said the Professor, shutting the door behind them, which was the signal for the buzz of conversation to start up again. I understand some of those sopranos can kick like a mule. Moist dreamed of bottled wizards all shouting his name. In the best traditions of awaking from a nightmare, the voices gradually became one voice, which turned out to be the voice of Mr. Pump, who was shaking him. Some of them were covered in jam, Moist shouted and then focused. What? Mr. Lipwick, you have an appointment with Lord Veterinary. This sunk in and sounded worse than wizards in jars. I don't have any appointment with Veterinary. Do I? He says you do, Mr. Lipwick, said the golem. Therefore, you do. We'll leave by the coachyard. There is a big crowd outside the front doors. Moist stopped with his trousers halfway on. Are they angry? Are any of them carrying buckets of tar, feathers of any kind? I do not know. I have been given instructions. I am carrying them out. I advise you to do the same. Moist was hustled out into the back streets, where some shreds of mist were still floating. What time is it, for heaven's sake? He complained. 7:15, Mr. Lipwick. That's still night time. Doesn't the man ever sleep? What's so important that I've got to be dragged out of my nice warm pile of letters? The clock in Lord Veterinary's anteroom didn't tick right. Sometimes the tick was just a fraction late, sometimes the tock was early. Occasionally one or the other didn't even happen at all. This wasn't really noticeable until you'd been in there for 5 minutes, by which time small but significant parts of the brain were already going crazy. Moist was not good at early mornings in any case. That was one of the advantages of a life of crime. You didn't have to get up until other people had got the streets aired. The clerk Drumnut glided in on hushed feet so soundlessly that he came as a shock. He was one of the most silent people Moist had ever encountered. Would you like some coffee, postmaster? He said quietly. Am I in trouble, Drumnut? I wouldn't care to say, sir. Have you read the Times this morning? The paper? No. Oh. Moist's mind ran back furiously over yesterday's interview. He hadn't said anything wrong, had he? It had all been good, positive stuff, hadn't it? Veterinary wanted people to use the post, didn't he? We always get a few copies straight off the press, said Drumnut. I shall fetch you one. He returned with the paper. Moist unfolded it, took in the front page in one moment of agony, read a few sentences, put his hand over his eyes, and said, Oh, gods. Did you notice the cartoon, postmaster? Said Drumnut innocently. It may be thought quite droll. Moist risked another glance at the terrible page. Perhaps in unconscious self-defense, his gaze had skipped over the cartoon, which showed two Ragged Street urchins. One of them was holding a strip of penny stamps. The text below read, First urchin, having acquired some of the newly minted stampings. Have you seen Lord Veterinary's backside? Second urchin, Nah, I wouldn't lick it for a penny, neither. Moist's face went waxen. He's seen this? He croaked. "Oh, yes, sir." Moist stood up quickly. "It's still early," he said. "Mr. Trooper is probably still on duty. If I run, he can probably fit me in. I'll go right away. That will be okay, won't it? I'll cut out the paperwork. I don't want to be a burden to anyone. I'll even—" Now, Postmaster," said Drumnod, pushing him gently back into his chair. "Don't distress yourself unduly. In my experience, his lordship is a complex man. It is not wise to anticipate his reactions." "You mean you think I'm going to live?" Drumnod screwed up his face in thought and stared at the ceiling for a moment. Yes, I think you might," he said. "I mean in the fresh air, with everything attached." "Quite possibly, sir. You may go in now, sir." Moist tiptoed into the Patrician's office. Only Lord Veterinari's hands were visible on either side of the Times. Moist reread the headlines with dull horror. "We don't break down, Postmaster vows. Amazing attack on clacks. Pledges will deliver anywhere using remarkable new stamps." That was the main story. It was alongside a smaller story, which nevertheless drew the eye. The headline was, "Grand Trunk down again, continent cut off." And at the bottom, in a heavier typeface to show it was meant to be light-hearted, under the headline, "History cannot be denied." Were a dozen of stories about things that had happened when the ancient post turned up. There was the rumpus that had turned into a fracas, Mr. Parker and his bride-to-be, and others too. The post had changed unremarkable lives in small ways. It was like cutting a window into history and seeing what might have been. That seemed to be the entirety of the front page, except for a story about the watch hunting for a mystery killer who had mauled some banker to death in his house. They were baffled, it said. That cheered Moist up a little. It was, if their infamous werewolf officer couldn't sniff out a bloody murderer, then maybe they couldn't find Moist when the time came. A brain could surely beat a nose. Lord Veterinary seemed oblivious to Moist's presence, and Moist wondered what effect a polite cough might have. At which point the newspaper rustled. "It says here in the letters column," said the voice of the patrician, "that the phrase 'stick it up your jumper' is based on an ancient Ethiopian saying that is at least 2,000 years old, thus clearly predating jumpers, but not, presumably, the act of sticking." He lowered the paper and looked at Moist over the top of it. "I don't know if you happen to be following this interesting little etymological debate." "No, sir," said Moist. "If you remember, I spent the past 6 weeks in a condemned cell." His lordship put down the paper, steepled his fingers, and looked at Moist over the top of them. "Ah, yes, so you did, Mr. Lipwick. Well. Look, I'm really sorry," Moist began. "Anywhere in the world, even to the gods, our postmen don't break down so easily. History is not to be denied. Very impressive, Mr. Lipwick. You have made quite a splash," said Veterinary, smiling. As the fish said to the man with the lead weight tied to his feet, "I didn't exactly say. In my experience, Miss Crisplock tends to write down exactly what one says," Veterinary observed. "It's a terrible thing when journalists do that. It spoils the fun. One feels instinctively that it's cheating somehow. And I gather you're selling promissory notes too." "What?" "The stamps, Mr. Moist. A promise to carry a penny's worth of mail, a promise that must be kept. Do come and look at this." He stood up and walked across to the window, where he beckoned. "Do come, Mr. Lipwick." Fearing that he might be hurled down onto the cobbles, Moist nevertheless did so. "See the big Clacks Tower over there on the tump," said Veterinary, gesturing. "Not much activity on the Grand Trunk this morning. Problems on a tower out on the plains, I gather. Nothing is getting to Stow Lat and beyond, but now, if you look down..." It took Moist a moment to understand what he was seeing, and then, "That's a queue outside the post office," he said. "Yes, Mr. Lipwick," said Veterinary with dark glee, "for stamps as advertised. Angmorpork citizens have an instinct for, you might say, joining in the fun. Go to it, Mr. Lipwick. I'm sure you're full of ideas. Don't let me detain you." Lord Veterinary returned to his desk and picked up the paper. "It's right here on the front page," Moist thought. He can't have not seen it. About the other thing," he ventured, staring at the cartoon. "What other thing would that be?" said Lord Veterinary. There was a moment of silence. Nothing really," said Moist. "I'll be off then." "Indeed you will, Postmaster. The mail must get through, must it not?" Veterinary listened to the distant doors shut, then went and stood at the window until he saw a golden figure hurry across the courtyard. Drumnut came and tidied up the out tray. "Well done, sir," he said quietly. "Thank you, Drumnut." "I see Mr. Horsefly has passed away, sir." "So I understand, Drumnut." There was a stir in the crowd as Moist crossed the street. To his unspeakable relief, he saw Mr. Spools standing with one of the serious men from his printery. Spools hurried over to him. "I have several thousand of both the items," he whispered, pulling out a package from under his coat. "Pennies and 2 pennies. They are not the best we can do, but I thought you might be in want of them. We heard the Qa'Rajh was down again. You're a lifesaver, Mr. Spools. If you could just take them inside. By the way, how much is a Qa'Rajh's message to Stow Lad?" "Even a very short message would be at least 30 pence, I think," said the engraver. "Thank you." Moist stood back and cupped his hands. "Ladies and gentlemen," he shouted, "the post office will be open in 5 minutes for the sale of penny and 2 penny stamps. In addition, we will be taking mail for Stow Lad. First express delivery to Stow Lad leaves on the hour, ladies and gentlemen, to arrive this morning. The cost will be 10 pence per standard envelope. I repeat, 10 pence. The mail, ladies and gentlemen, accept no substitutes. Thank you." There was a stir from the crowd and several people hurried away. Moist led Mr. Spools into the building, politely closing the door in the face of the crowd. He felt the tingle he always felt when the game was afoot. Life should be made of moments like this, he decided. With his heart singing, he erupted orders. "Stanley!" "Yes, Mr. Lidwick," said the boy behind him. "Run along to Hobson's livery stable and ask for the fastest horse they've got. Tell them I want a good fast horse, right? Something with a bit of fizz in its blood. Not some figured-up old screw, and I know the difference. I want it here in half an hour. Off you go. Mr. Grote?" "Yes, sir." Grote actually saluted. "Rig up some kind of table for a counter, will you?" said Moist. "In 5 minutes we open to accept mail and sell stamps. I'm taking the mail to Stow Lad while the Qa'Rajh is down, and you're acting postmaster while I'm gone, Mr. Spools." "Right here, Mr. Lidwick. You really don't have to shout," said the engraver reproachfully. "Sorry, Mr. Spools. More stamps, please. I'll need some to take with me in case there's mail to come back. Can you do that? And I'll need the 5s and the dollar stamps as soon as—" "Are you all right, Mr. Grote?" The old man was swaying, his lips moving soundlessly. "Mr. Grote?" Boyce repeated. "Acting postmaster," mumbled Grote. "That's right, Mr. Grote. No Grote has ever been acting postmaster." Suddenly Grote dropped to his knees and gripped Moist around the legs. "Oh, thank you, sir. I won't let you down, Mr. Lipwick. You can rely on me, sir. Neither rain nor snow nor gloom." "Yes, thank you. Acting postmaster. Thank you. That's enough. Thank you," said Moist, trying to pull away. "Please get up, Mr. Grote. Mr. Grote, please." "Can I wear the winged hat while you're gone, sir?" Grote pleaded. "It'd mean such a lot, sir." "I'm sure it would, Mr. Grote, but not today. Today the hat flies to Stow Lad." Grote stood up. "Should it really be you that takes the mail, sir?" "Who else? Golden can't move fast enough. Stanley is... Well, Stanley and the rest of you gentlemen are, rich in years." Moist rubbed his hands together. "No argument. Acting postmaster, Grote. Now let's sell some stamps." The doors were open and the crowd flocked in. Veterinary had been right. If there was any action, the people of Ankh-Morpork liked to be a part of it. Penny stamps flowed over makeshift counters. After all, the reasoning went, for a penny you got something worth a penny, right? After all, even if it was a joke, it was as safe as buying money. And envelopes came the other way. People were actually writing letters in the post office. Moist made a mental note. Envelopes with a stamp already on and a sheet of folded paper inside them. Instant letter kit, just add ink. That was an important rule of any game. Always make it easy for people to give you money. To his surprise, although he realized it shouldn't have been, Drumnut elbowed his way through the crowd with a small but heavy leather package sealed with a wax seal bearing the city crest and a V. It was addressed to the mayor of Stow Lad. "Government business," he announced pointedly as he handed it over. "Do you want to buy any stamps for it?" said Moist, taking the packet. "What do you think, postmaster?" asked the clerk. "I definitely think government business travels free," said Moist. "Thank you, Mr. Lidwick. The Lord likes a fast learner." Other mail for Stow Lad did get stamped, though. A lot of people had friends or business there, and Moist looked around. People were scribbling everywhere, even holding the notepaper up against walls. The stamps, penny and 2 penny, were shifting fast. At the other end of the hall, the golems were sorting the endless mountains of mail. In fact, in a small way, the place was bustling. "You should have seen it, sir. You should have seen it. Lipwick, are you?" He snapped out of the dream of chandeliers to see a thick-set man in front of him. Recognition took a moment, and then said that this was the owner of Hobson's Livery Stable, at once the most famous and notorious such establishment in the city. It was probably not the hive of criminal activity that popular rumour suggested, although the huge establishment often seemed to contain grubby-looking men with not much to do apart from sit around and squint at people. And he was employing an Igor, everyone knew, which of course was sensible when you had such a big veterinary overhead. But you heard stories. That, for example, stolen horses got dismantled in the dead of night and might well turn up with a dye job and 2 different legs. And it was said that there was one horse in Ankh-Morpork that had a longitudinal seam from head to tail, being sewn together from what was left of 2 horses that had been involved in a particularly nasty accident. "Oh, hello, Mr. Hobson," said a Moist. "Seems you think I hire tired old horses, sir, do you?" said Willie Hobson. His smile was not entirely friendly. A nervous Stanley stood behind him. Hobson was big and heavy-set, but not exactly fat. He was probably what you'd get if you shaved a bear. "I have written some that," Moist began, but Hobson raised a hand. "Seems you want fish," said Hobson. His smile widened. "Well, I always give the customer what I want, you know that. So I brought you Boris." "Oh, yes," said Moist, "and he'll get me to stow lad, will he?" "Oh, at the very least, sir," said Hobson. "Good horseman, are you?" "When it comes to riding out of town, Mr. Hobson, there's no one faster." "That's good, sir, that's good," said Hobson in a slow voice of someone carefully urging the prey toward the trap. "Boris does have a few faults, but I can see a skilled horseman like you should have no trouble. Ready then, he's right outside, got a man holding him." It turned out that there were in fact 4 men holding the huge black stallion in a network of ropes while it danced and lunged and kicked around and tried to bite. A 5th man was lying on the ground. Boris was a killer. "Like I said, sir, he's got a few faults, but no one could call him... Now what was it? Oh yeah, figured up old screw. Still want a horse with fizz?" Hobson's grin said it all. "This is what I do to snooty buggers who try to mess me around. Let's see you try this one, Mr. I know all about horses." Moist looked at Boris, who was trying to trample the fallen man, and at the watching crowd. Damn the gold suit. If you were Moist from Lipwick, there was only one thing to do now, and that was raise the stakes. "Take your saddle off," he said. "You what?" said Hobson. "Take your saddle off, Mr. Hobson," said Moist firmly. "This bag's quite heavy, so let's lose the saddle." Hobson's smile remained, but the rest of his face tried to sidle away from it. "Had all the kits you want, have you?" "Just give me a blanket and a belly band, Mr. Hobson." Now Hobson's smile vanished completely. This was going to look too much like murder. "You might want to think again, sir," he said. "Boris took a couple of finger off a man last year. He's a trampler too, and a snaffler, and a scraper, and he'll haul luck if he can get away with it. He's got demons in him, and that's a fact." "Will he run?" "Not so much run as bolt, sir. Born evil, that one," said Hobson. "You need a crowbar to getting round corners too. Look, sir, fair play to you for a game, but I've got plenty of other." Hobson flinched as Moist gave him a special grin. "You chose him, Mr. Hobson. I'll ride him. I'd be grateful if you could get your gentleman to point him up Broadway for me while I go and conclude a few items of business." Moist went into the building, ran up the stairs to his office, shut the door, and crammed his handkerchief into his mouth, and whimpered gently for a few seconds until he felt better. He'd ridden bareback a few times when things had been really hot, but Boris has the eyes of a crazy thing. But back off now, and he'd be a fool in a shiny suit. You had to give them a show, an image, something to remember. All he had to do was stay until he left the city, and then find a suitable bush to jump off into. Yes, that'd do, and then stagger into Stolad hours later, still with the mail having valiantly fought off bandits. He'd be believed, of course, because it would feel right, because people wanted to believe things, because it'd make a good tale, because if you made it glitter sufficiently, glass could appear more like diamond than a diamond ever did. There was a cheer when he stepped out into the steps again. The sun, on cue, decided to appear from the mists and sparkled off of his wings. Boris was looking apparently docile now, chewing his bit. This didn't fool Moist. If a horse like Boris was quiet, it was only because he was plotting something big. Mr. Pump, I shall need you to give me a leg up, he said, slinging the post bag around his neck. Yes, Mr. Lipwick, said the golem. Mr. Lipwick? Morris turned around to see Zacharissa Crisplock hurrying up the street, notebook in hand. Always a pleasure to see you, Zacharissa, said Morris, but I'm a little busy right now. You are aware that the Grand Trunk is shut again, she said. Yes, it was in the paper. Now I must... So you're challenging the Qa'Rajh Company? The pencil hung poised over her notebook. Just delivering the mail, Miss Crisplock. Just like I said I'd do, said Morris in a firm, manly tone. But it's rather strange, is it not, that a man on horseback is more reliable than a... Please, Miss Crisplock, we are the post office, said Moist in his best high-minded voice. We don't go in for petty rivalry. We're sorry to hear that our colleagues in the Qa'Rajh Company are experiencing temporary difficulties with their machinery. We fully sympathize with their plight, and if they would like us to deliver their messages for them, we would of course be happy to sell them some stamps. Soon to be available in penny, 2 penny, 5 penny, 10 penny, and $1 values here at your post office, ready gummed. Incidentally, we intend eventually to flavor the gum in licorice, orange, cinnamon, and banana flavors, but not strawberry, because I hate strawberries. He could see a smile as she wrote this down. Then she said, I did hear you correctly, did I? You are offering to carry Qa'Rajh's messages. Certainly. Ongoing messengers can be on the trunk in Stow Lad. Helpfulness is our middle name. Are you sure it's not cheekiness, said Zacharissa to a laughter from the crowd. I don't understand you, I'm sure, said Moist. Now, if you will, you're cocking a snook at the Qa'Rajh people again, aren't you? Said the journalist. That must be a journalistic term, said Moist. I've never owned a snook, and even if I did, I would not know how to cock it. And now, if you will excuse me, I have mail to deliver, and I ought to leave before Boris eats somebody. Again. Can I ask you just one last thing? Will your soul be unduly diminished if Otto takes a picture of your departing? I suppose I can't stop you out here, provided my face isn't very clear, said Moist, as Mr. Pump cupped his pottery hands to make a step. The priest is very hot on that, you know. Yes, I expect the priest is, said Miss Crisplock, making sure the inverted commas clanged with irony. Besides, by the look of that creature, it may be the last chance we get. It looks like death on 4 legs, Mr. Lipwick. The crowd fell silent as Moist mounted. Boris merely shifted his weight a little. Look at it like this, Moist thought. What have you got to lose? Your life? You've already been hanged. You're into angel time. And you are impressing the hell out of everybody. Why are they buying stamps? Because you're giving them a show. Just say the word, mister, said one of Hobson's men, hauling on the end of a rope. When we let him go, we ain't hanging round. Wait a minute, said Moist quickly. He'd seen a figure at the front of the crowd. It was wearing a figure-hugging grey dress, and as he watched, it blew a neurotic cloud of smoke at the sky, gave him a look, and shrugged. Dinner tonight, Miss Dearheart, he shouted. Heads turned. There was a ripple of laughter and a few cheers. For a moment she flashed him a look that should have left his shadow on the smoking remains of the wall opposite, and then she gave a curt nod. Who knows? It could be peaches underneath. Let him go, boys, said Moist, his heart soaring. The men dived away. The world was still for breath. And then Boris sprang from docility into a mad, rearing dance, back legs clattering across the flagstones, hooves pawing at the air. Wonderful! Hold it! The world went white, and Boris went mad.